Welcome to the mixed conifer forest of the Sierra Nevada of Yosemite. I think the mixed conifer forest means the Sierra to me in a way, because that's the forest my parents brought us to most often when we came to the mountains. So it has a special familiarity and fondness, I guess, for me. Well, it is the lowest forested zone of the mountains in the southern part of California, where forests normally don't occur at sea level as they do on the north coast and in the northern part of the state. You have to gain several thousand feet of elevation before a forest appears, and it's when it does. Why is that, by the way? Why do you lack forests at lower elevations like Santa Barbara?
Too dry.
Yeah, too dry, basically. And up here, it does rain or snow more than lower down. What else? What other helps the moisture situation? One other major element of the weather changes as you go higher.
Gets colder?
Yeah.
It's milder.
Yeah. The colder it gets, the farther that moisture goes, and the less you lose. So it gets colder, it gets wetter. And so trees can become the dominant vegetation as opposed to shrubby vegetation that we have below, or grassy or whatever. Trees tend to be evergreen, which indicates that there's some advantage in this climate in retaining foliage year-round. Suggests that winter may not be such a bad time for at least early spring and late fall for photosynthesizing, and it perhaps doesn't pay to make a whole brand new set of foliage every year. And maybe that the summer isn't that much better than the winter, and maybe things are a little bit dry some of the time, so that this foliage on our conifers tends to be fairly drought resistant compared to, say, maple trees and birch trees that you find in the east. So we have relatively drought resistant foliage as well as foliage that's on the tree year-round. So what do we get here? Just to remind us all. We get some pines, and we get some non-pines that are still conifers. What's the commonest pine in this zone, just to get to the stuff we're looking for?
Ponderosa.
Ponderosa. Here?
Yeah, with a great big puffy clumps of needles. Is that the only pine we see?
No.
The only one I see at the moment. I would expect another one. Give it a little bit before moisture.
What's this over here?
That's one over there. See one over there?
What's that one? Oh, that swollen coming up? Oh, that might be a sugar.
Oh, that's what we're looking for, yeah. Sugar pine. You guys
With the
you're ahead
branches
of me.
going the way out? Yeah.
We saw some coming out.
Christmas tree. Yeah.
Yeah, sugar pine would belong in that forest given the same title as this mixed conifer forest. So white fir.
White fir.
Yeah, we have two common firs in the Sierra, white fir and red fir. You don't have to worry about red fir here. It's never this low. White fir, in fact, is the last tree, as you're coming up the mountain, the last tree usually to join the mixed conifer forest. It waits till all the other trees have shown up, and then there it is. It seems to have the highest moisture requirement and the greatest shade tolerance of any of the other trees in the mixed conifer forest. So by the time the other trees have all assembled, you've got more shade and usually more moisture, and then the white fir is there. And in fact, should this forest grow under ideal growing conditions, let's say, to the point where it becomes very dense, because everybody protects it from fire. It becomes very shady underneath. Then that forest will ultimately be dominated by white fir, because white fir is the most shade tolerant and the only tree that as a youngster will put up with that level of shade. So extend that statement a little bit, and you have a situation where an unprotected, highly protected forest, which is what we've had in many places during the last 150 years or so, leads to a pure stand of fir, which then becomes quite flammable, and the whole forest easily burns down when fire is started for one reason or another, such as lightning. And this mixed forest that we see is maintained most effectively when fires occur every decade or 2 or 3 or 4. The frequency doesn't seem to be too important, anywhere from as little as 5 years to as much as 75 years. But if fires are allowed to burn at that frequency, you maintain what most people feel now is a healthy forest. If anything characterizes the understory of forests in the Sierra, west side of the Sierra, it's this.
I don't know it from here.
Mountain misery.
Mountain misery. Ah.
Camibatia foliolosa, I think it is.
Wonderful.
Camibatia foliolosa. How about mountain misery? It's a member of the rose family. Has a nice white flower, like small.
The flowers are right here, Bob.
Ah, okay.
I see him.
It's already, just coming out.
I'm over towards the Manzanita over.
Yeah. This is by far the most common understory plant in ponderosa pine forests. The higher proportion of ponderosa pine in the forest, the more likely you're going to have a lot of this there too. It correlates very well with the occurrence of ponderosa pine for some reason.
A couple of oaks in here. We've got black oak scattered around, and then canyon oak like here. And the oaks are not very shade tolerant. They typically need sunlight to grow effectively, and they don't regenerate under a closed canopy. And if you look around, all of the oaks that you see are in gaps. They're in openings in the canopy, and that's where they're getting a foothold and able to maintain themselves. So these forests are really, if you could come back over a timeline of a couple of 100 years, they're really dynamic, of trees growing and dying and other things coming in up in the gap where that original one was, and then another gap created somewhere else. And so you can think about this as something that's just constantly changing. The whole character of what you're seeing would be the same, but at any specific point over time it changes dramatically.
How do oaks do with snow?
They don't do real well with lots of snow and especially lots of extreme cold, so we're going to lose them as we get up higher. But in this zone, with the snow that they get here, they do just fine. Think about the oaks in the east, in the northeast, and they do fine throughout New England with those kinds of temperatures. But when you get up to the really extremely high, I guess as we're getting up to the red fir zone, Bob, they'd be starting to drop out.
Are there any evergreen oaks back east?
In the south, the southern live oak, but not in the northeast.
That's the oak you see in the lawns. And
Yeah, it's in the
moss.
With the moss on it.
We have an evergreen oak in California that I assume is of recent origin, relatively, and that's huckleberry oak. It's a derivative of the chaparral. And that is the highest oak in the Sierra in terms of reaching altitude.
Vaccinifolia.
Vaccinifolia. We'll see it tomorrow.